Some towns have rules, quiet ones, ones that aren't written down, but everyone knows. In Willow Creek, there's just one. At 10:03 p.m., every single night, a siren echoes through the streets. You don't ask why, you don't look outside, and whatever you do, you stay in the light. I didn't believe it at first. I thought it was some leftover Cold War ritual, a scare tactic. But then one night, I was too slow to flip the switch, and in those few seconds of darkness, I think something almost took me. This is the story of the siren, and the town that survives by its warning. Some towns have rules, quiet ones, ones that aren't written down, but everyone knows. I moved here for the quiet. After 2 years of burnout in the city, deadlines, rent hikes, an endless tide of noise, the idea of a small town tucked away in the hills sounded like relief. Willow Creek had charm, winding roads, faded brick storefronts, the kind of place where nothing big ever happens. I rented a modest one-bedroom house on the edge of town. It had a crooked porch, a big oak tree out front, and silence so thick it felt like insulation. The first few nights were exactly what I needed. I slept better, I read more. No sirens, no honking, no shouting, just the low murmurs of wind through the trees and the occasional owl. But on my fourth night, something changed. At exactly 10:03 p.m., a siren sounded. It started low, a deep, vibrating hum, then rose into a mechanical howl that echoed off every building. I stood at the kitchen window, staring out into the still street. The sound didn't seem to come from any one direction. It came from everywhere. I opened the door and stepped onto the porch. All along the street, porch lights blinked on. Living rooms lit up. Every window glowed like a lantern. I looked across the road at the old woman who lived 2 houses down. I hadn't even met her yet, and saw her standing at her window, motionless, staring into the night. The siren lasted exactly 60 seconds. Then it stopped. The silence afterward was heavy, not peaceful, hollow, like the town had taken a deep breath and was waiting for something. I stayed on the porch another minute, then went back inside. My phone had no alerts, no weather warnings, no local news stories. I checked Twitter, nothing. It was like it hadn't happened. The next morning, I asked the cashier at the corner store about it. She paused, then smiled, too fast. "Oh, the siren. Yeah, that's just a thing we do. Night safety drill, you know? Every night." "Yep, just make sure you're somewhere lit. It's nothing to worry about." She rang up my coffee and batteries and didn't say another word. That night, I kept a light on in every room, just in case. And again, right on time, at 10:03, the siren wailed. It still made the hair on my arms stand up. I stayed in the kitchen under a bright bulb, watching through the blinds. No one was outside. The whole street was lit up, but not a single person moved. Not during the siren, not after. By the end of the week, I'd accepted the ritual. Lights on by 10. Stay where it's bright. Don't ask too many questions. Then, one night, I forgot. I'd been reading on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, lost in a novel. The light above me had flickered for days but hadn't gone out, and I hadn't bothered to replace the bulb yet. I didn't notice the time until I heard the first low hum of the siren begin to rise. 10:03 p.m. I dropped the book. I reached for the door handle. The porch light blinked, then died. The siren wailed, cold and massive. I yanked open the door and stumbled into the house. The hallway light was on. I stood there in its soft yellow glow, heart pounding, sweat cold on my neck. Nothing happened, but in that moment between the light dying and the hallway flooding around me, I swear something shifted, like the shape of the house bent, like something almost reached me. I didn't sleep well. The next morning, I bought replacement bulbs, flashlights, extra candles. I walked the house checking corners for darkness. Any room I walked into after sundown, I lit up fully. I didn't need to understand the siren. I just needed to follow the rule. Be in the light when it sounds. Every night, it came without fail. 10:03, 60 seconds of mechanical howling, and every night I was ready. I'd stand in a room with light touching my skin, feeling like I was avoiding something I couldn't name. 2 weeks in, it was just routine. And then a few days later, I saw it happen to someone else. But that's another night. The strange thing was how quickly it all started to feel normal. By the second week, I had a routine. I cooked early, showered by 9, made sure I was somewhere safe and well lit before the siren. It wasn't just habit, it was instinct, like brushing your teeth or locking your front door at night. You don't think about why, you just do it. The town encouraged it in quiet ways. The hardware store sold backup bulbs in packs of 20. Battery-powered lanterns were on display year-round. There were signs posted near the town square. Be safe, be seen. No one explained it. No one needed to. You just understood. I tried asking around, politely, at first. The cashier at the diner told me, with a forced chuckle, that the siren was part of the town's evening tradition. When I pressed, her smile faded. She muttered something about not being one of those people who go poking where they don't belong. The postman said it was a leftover Cold War alarm system, repurposed to keep people indoors. Place likes its quiet, he said, shrugging. Keeps the peace. A guy at the gas station told me the siren had been sounding every night since before he was born. Said it used to scare him as a kid. Then, like everyone else, he just got used to it. So, no one actually knows what it's for? I asked. He gave me a look. Not angry, not annoyed, just blank, like the question didn't register. Just don't be in the dark when it goes off, he said. That was all. I stopped asking. Whatever this place was hiding, it didn't want to be uncovered. And to be honest, I didn't want to be the guy who peeled back the wrong corner and saw something he couldn't forget. So I played along. I bought an extra flashlight for the bathroom. I kept a set of spare bulbs in the drawer by the front door. I stopped taking evening walks. After dinner, I stayed inside, lights on, curtains drawn. I read, I listened to music, I waited for the siren. And every night at 10:03 it came. The sound was always the same. Low, rising, metallic. No voice, no warning. Just that siren, as if the town was holding its breath. And every time it faded after 60 seconds, as if nothing had happened, but something was happening. I could feel it. The air during those 60 seconds was different, still but dense, like the walls themselves were listening. One night, I looked out through a slit in my curtain. The street was bathed in warm yellow light, every house glowing, not a single shadow on the pavement, and not a single person in sight. I watched the clock. 10:03 p.m. The siren started. For one full minute, I stared at my neighborhood, expecting, hoping to see something that would explain it all. But there was nothing, just the empty, too bright street and the screaming of that siren, echoing across rooftops. Then, as it always did, it stopped. But the silence that followed wasn't ordinary silence. It felt like something was waiting. I backed away from the window. That same week, something changed. The siren had just ended. I was turning off lights, walking toward my bedroom, when I saw it. Across the street, the old Simmons house, vacant for years, was dark. Not dim, not barely lit, completely dark. I stood there, watching. Nothing moved, no flicker, no shape, no hint of life. Then I blinked. A bedroom light was on. I could have sworn it hadn't been before, but now it glowed like every other house on the street. I stared for a while longer. Eventually, I went to bed, but I left every light in the house on, and I dreamt of silence. Endless, deafening silence. The weeks passed quietly, the siren becoming a strange comfort. I began to measure time by it. There was the day, and then there was the minute of warning. I came to expect that 10:03 cry like a train in the distance. A signal that night had truly arrived. By then, I'd fully adjusted to life in Willow Creek. I had regular spots, the diner for morning coffee, the bookshop on Maple Street, the walking trail that looped the town's edge. Life was simple here, predictable. So when the unpredictable happened, it hit hard. It was a Thursday evening. I was out later than usual, having dinner at a friend's place a few blocks from my house. James, one of the only people in town who didn't flinch when I asked questions. We talked about books, local legends, movies. He never mentioned the siren, and I didn't push. There was an unspoken agreement. Some things were off limits. By the time I noticed the time 10:01, I was already halfway down his porch steps. "I gotta go," I said. James nodded once. "Run." That was all. Just run. I bolted. My flashlight was in my coat pocket, but when I pulled it out, the beam sputtered, then died. Dead batteries. My phone was low too. No flashlight app to save me. The sky above was cloudless, moonless, the kind of black that swallows everything. I cut through yards, sprinting for my porch light. My house was only 4 blocks away, but it felt like miles. As I reached the edge of the 4th Street, the siren began. It screamed through the air like it had teeth. I was still in motion when it hit, still in darkness. No streetlights, no porch lamps. Nothing had reached me yet. I felt it instantly. The air changed. It was like a vacuum opened up behind me. My legs felt heavy, like the darkness was pulling me backwards. Not with hands, with pressure, with absence. I ran harder. The second I hit my porch light's glow, the feeling vanished. Just gone. I collapsed against the door, panting. The siren still howled, but my ears were tuned only to my heartbeat. Inside, the lights were on. Bright, welcoming, familiar. But I couldn't shake what I'd felt outside. I hadn't seen anything. There were no shadows chasing me, no figure in the trees. And yet, the darkness had weight, like I'd been standing at the edge of a cliff with nothing below. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, James was waiting at my doorstep. "You all right?" he asked. I nodded. "Made it." He looked past me into the house where the hallway bulb still burned. "Good. You don't want to know what happens if you don't." It was the first time anyone in town had said that aloud. I wanted to ask more, but he shook his head. "Just stay in the light. It's the only thing that keeps you here." Here. That word echoed. He left after that, said he had errands to run. But I stood in my doorway for a long time, staring out at the town, imagining the spaces between buildings not as shadows, but as traps. Later that day, I bought 2 more lanterns, 1 for each room, extra batteries, a backup generator. And when 10:03 rolled around again, I was ready. Lights on, windows shut. But I kept thinking about that moment on the sidewalk, just before I reached safety. It hadn't felt like I was alone out there. It felt like something had noticed me. It was bound to happen eventually. You live in a place long enough, follow the rules without question, and eventually, someone makes a mistake. The scary thing is how normal the day started. Clear skies, kids riding bikes, neighbors waving, nothing to suggest someone wouldn't make it to the light in time. But that night, someone didn't. I was reading in the living room when the siren began. 10:03 sharp. Lights were already on. I'd checked everything twice. I even had my hand resting on the backup lantern, just in case. The sound filled the walls, droning and endless. I glanced out the front window, mostly out of habit. That's when I saw it. Across the street, 3 houses down, a porch was dark. It was the Jackson place. Quiet couple, late 60s maybe. The kind of people who kept their yard perfectly trimmed and always nodded when they passed. No porch light, no windows glowing, just dark. At first I told myself maybe they'd gone on a trip. Maybe no one was home. But then the curtain in the upstairs window shifted. Someone was there. My stomach turned. I opened the front door, ready to yell, warn them. But the siren's noise was too loud, too thick. My voice would never carry across. And then the light in my hallway flickered. I stepped back inside. The darkness outside felt like it had noticed me noticing it. I shut the door. The siren ended. 60 seconds, as always. I crept back to the window. The Jackson house was still dark, still quiet. I stared for a long time. Eventually, one of the upstairs lamps turned on. But something was wrong. The house looked the same, but the light didn't feel right. Like it wasn't coming from a bulb, but something trying to imitate one. Like a photocopy of a glow. I didn't sleep. The next morning, I walked past the Jackson house. Just once. Their car was gone, porch empty, curtains still drawn. No sign of movement. I knocked. No answer. I even asked a neighbor if they'd seen the Jacksons recently. They blinked at me. "Who?" "Janet and Peter Jackson lived right there." A pause. "That house has been empty for years," they said. I didn't ask again. That afternoon, I went home and wrote everything down. Not just what I'd seen, but how I'd seen it. The feeling, the sound, the change in the light. Because that's what the darkness does. It doesn't just take people, it erases them. No body, no trace, just gone. Like they were never there. That's when I realized the siren isn't just a warning. It's a line, a boundary. Step outside of the light and you're not just in danger. You're unwritten. The next night, I didn't move. I sat in the center of my lit living room with every lamp and bulb and candle I owned burning around me. But the dark outside the windows, it still looked hungry. You can be careful, obsessive even. You can double check bulbs, test batteries, keep a spare lantern in every room. But it doesn't matter. All it takes is 1 second. And for me, that second came on a Wednesday night. An ordinary evening with nothing unusual to mark it. I was in the basement. I'd been organizing old boxes, trying to do something useful with the space. A storm had rolled in earlier. The kind that feels like it's pacing outside your windows, waiting for you to forget it's there. Thunder, heavy rain, the whole thing. Power had flickered once around 9, but held. At 9:58, I glanced at my watch. Plenty of time. I grabbed the flashlight on the workbench. It clicked on, dim but functional, and started heading for the stairs. I was halfway up when the house went completely dark. Total blackout. No buzz of the fridge. No hum of the heating vents. No sound at all except the storm outside and my own breath. Then the flashlight in my hand died. Not dimmed, not flickered, just off. I stood there, 1 foot on the stairs, 1 hand on the wall, frozen. My first thought was to run. The second was, where? I couldn't see the steps, couldn't risk tripping, couldn't move without falling. Then the siren started, louder than usual. It roared through the walls like it knew I was down there, like it was searching for me. 10:03 p.m. I'd missed it. I was in the dark, and it knew. The space around me changed. I don't mean the temperature or the air, I mean the absence of both. The moment the siren began, the darkness felt thicker, deeper, like the basement had unspooled, and I was no longer standing in it. No shapes, no sense of walls, just me, floating in a void. And I swear something was with me. Not moving, not breathing, just aware, watching. I tried to speak, but no sound came out. My voice felt swallowed by the black. And for a moment, just a breath, I understood. This was it. This is what happens when you fail. You don't die. You don't get taken. You fall out of place, out of time, out of memory. You cease to be remembered, even by the light. But just before the siren cut off, something saved me. A bulb upstairs. Maybe the storm had passed. Maybe the grid reset. But light returned, faint, blurry, reaching down the stairwell like a distant hand. I threw myself toward it, crawled, scraped my knees, slammed my shin into the corner of a step. But I made it. I didn't feel the light hit me so much as release me. The moment it did, I felt gravity return. Walls, air, the house, the storm, myself. I collapsed on the floor at the top of the stairs and lay there, gasping. The siren had ended. 60 seconds. I was only in the dark for 60 seconds. But I came back different. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in a pool of light on the kitchen floor, shaking. I kept checking my hands, my face. I felt real, but less anchored, like a drawing that hadn't finished being colored in. The next day, no one mentioned the power outage. When I asked the guy at the hardware store if his power had gone out, he blinked at me and said, "What outage?" I wanted to scream. Instead, I bought more lanterns. I walked past my own house later just to see if I still lived there, just to see if the neighborhood still remembered me. It had, for now, but something had seen me in the dark, and I had seen it back. I started noticing it the next night. The lights didn't feel right anymore. They worked technically. Bulbs glowed, switches clicked, but the glow felt thinner, like the space between me and the dark had shortened somehow. I added more lights, bought stronger ones, switched to halogens, LEDs, solar backups, anything I could find. But the truth was obvious. Something had changed, not with the power, not with the town, with me. I'd been in the dark, even if only for a moment. I'd crossed the boundary the siren warned about, and now it knew me. The light didn't chase the darkness away anymore. It simply kept it at bay, like a match in a vast cave, and every night the siren sounded louder. It was never early, not yet, but I felt it pressing closer. That sound had once felt like a rule, a signal. Now it felt like a targeting system, like it was looking for me. 3 days after the basement, I woke up to find every bulb in my house blown. Every single one. I hadn't even heard them pop. They were just dead. I ran to the drawers, candles, lanterns, lighters, all where I left them. I lit everything, lined the walls in flame. That night, the siren blared, and none of the light reached me. I sat in the middle of the living room, surrounded by flame, and it still felt like I was in shadow, like the dark had started to bend the rules. The next morning, I packed a bag. I told myself I'd leave. I'd drive until the signal was gone, until the town was just a shape in the rearview mirror. But when I turned the key in the ignition, nothing happened. No click, no churn, not even a dashboard light. The car was as dead as the house had been. I opened the door to step out and saw it. The sun had stopped rising. I mean, it was there, technically. Light existed, but it never got brighter. The sky hovered in that blue-gray stillness just before dawn. People still walked around. Dogs barked. Life continued. But something was wrong. No one noticed. When I tried to point it out to the mailman, he laughed. "Looks like rain," he said. The next night, my lights worked, but the siren came early. 9:57. I wasn't ready. I was in the back room, reorganizing shelves. I'd gotten comfortable again, sloppy. The siren hit like a hammer. I sprinted through the house, flipping switches. Lights buzzed, flickered, dimmed. One by one, they went out as I reached them, like the dark was catching up. By the time I reached the kitchen, only one bulb remained, the old ceiling fixture that used to hum faintly when it was on. It was flickering. I stood under it, chest heaving, watching it fade, each pulse slower, dimmer, and then dark. No sound, no room, just absence. I didn't fall, I didn't scream. I simply stopped being anywhere. There's no gravity here, no shape, no edge. You think darkness is something you can describe, a lack of light, a visual absence. But this is more than dark. It's a space beneath forgetting. I don't feel pain, I don't feel time, I just feel gone. I don't think I'll fade from memory all at once. Not right away, but soon someone will pass by my house and feel that strange itch, like a name they've forgotten, like a room they swore had furniture. Soon, even I won't remember who I was. I just hope someone's still listening. And if you are, when you hear the siren, stay in the light, because if you don't die, you disappear.